Good morning, afternoon, evening, depending on where you are, everyone, and welcome to Hacking HR's panel on balancing flexibility and structure and optimizing hybrid and remote work models for a positive employee experience. It's a big mouthful. I'm Rod Hutchings. I'm from Melbourne, Australia, and it's near midnight here, so it's early or late, whichever way you look at it. And I'll be guiding the discussion today. We have an incredible panel of experts who will share their insights on how to effectively balance flexibility and structure in this hybrid remote work environments. So without further ado, let's bring forward our panelists, please. And hello, everybody, and really looking forward to our conversation today. And if we want to go around our virtual room and just introduce yourself and maybe just share about what fascinates you about the topic, just briefly to get us going, and we'll go around clockwise. So, Vaclav first. Thank you. Welcome.
Hi, Rod. Hi, everyone. My pleasure to be here with you today, tonight, this evening, this morning, this afternoon, whatever it is.
Yes.
I've been in HR for almost 24 years now, and since COVID hit, we got a lot of struggle with, keeping our operations alive, and luckily we were able to actually convert every employee in our company to be able to work remotely, and that sort of saved their jobs and our business, and everybody was happy. And I think what fascinated me was number one, the speed with which we were able to actually do it, and what's connected with it was that sort of like I saw the enormous potential that is actually what people were capable of doing in a very short period of time and under high stress, which I would never think they were able to do before. Second phenomena connected with this issue that also fascinates me is when the pandemic finished, some companies that I probably assumed before were at the forefront of driving employee experience and an employee value proposition are now surprisingly going backward and are calling everyone back to the office and completely miss all the sort of benefits. I mean, everything has pros and cons, right? But they're completely missing out on the benefits of remote and hybrid working. So there is sort of a conundrum that is puzzling me, and maybe we can come a bit, closer to the root cause of this issue when we lead our discussions with the other distinctive panelists. So that's all from my side for now, and I hand over to Anna.
Thank you. Welcome,
Thank you
Anna.
very much. Thank you, Vaclav. Thank you, Rod. Let's say that I sit in a place of Earth that remote work was a reality even before it became vastly adopted by organizations. I work from the Silicon Valley in California. Technology had always enabled remote work in this area even before, but the level that it has been implemented became much more a reality during the pandemic, of course. My name is Anna. My last name is Mamalaki. And I drive the organizational effectiveness of the organizations for them to be much more, not only effective, but also very welcome by the employees joining these corporations. I especially do that within an environment of AI spread that I'm very much involved through special organizations that I'm part of. I believe that this discussion is going to provide a lot of seeds for creativity, but most importantly of effectiveness within organizations that are now working in a very hybrid work environment. I'm very much open to and ready to exchange these ideas and us, but also our participants, put them in practice. So let me give the opportunity to Kim to present herself.
Thanks, Anna, and welcome, Kim.
Thank you. My name's Kim Lee. I've been in HR for, I'll call it over 20 years. Currently an HR consultant. I left the corporate world earlier this year. And I too was, part of the pandemic really showed what we could do as far as, remote and hybrid, excuse me, work. And I think it really had it empowered and gave us the ability to bring everybody involved because we were kind of forced into the situation, and still wanted to make sure that we had engagement and a good, continuing with the culture. So, where I was working, it was in tech, so we were already spread out and dispersed across the globe. So we had the tools in place. We just had to make sure it all went quickly and effectively, and just applied those lessons learned to my next company.
Thank you, Kim. And last but not least, Lotus.
Hi, everyone. I'm Lotus Buckner. It's really great to be here with you all. I led HR efforts at 3 different companies and industries throughout COVID, and I did a fully on-site because of healthcare and actually had direct COVID responsibilities. And then I went to a hybrid model in higher education, and then a fully remote at a tech startup. So excited to share that experience at all 3. And really, I think what we need right now is a mindset shift. And I think that's been a really big challenge for people, is just to be able to shift our mindsets and, really learn from this era of time instead of kind of just going back to our comfort zones.
Thanks, Lotus. All right. So to get us started, I just thought, well, okay, finding the right balance between flexibility and structure in hybrid and remote models is, it's pretty crucial. And I guess at this point where there is this change of organizations bringing people back and a lot of organizations have people back. I don't think there's many organizations where everybody's back in the office. So we're over in a hybrid. There's still lots of people, also companies just operating in a remote way. So it's really crucial. How do we maintain productivity and employee satisfaction in this sort of environment? So it can be quite a challenge to maintain. So we'll just start with a meaty question, and I'll come to Kim first to give it a go. What are some key strategies you've found most effective in balancing flexibility and structure within this hybrid and remote work models?
Well, so I think what we found as a balance and what I believe that worked was, again, I've been working in global companies for several years, and so there's always some manner of trying to find that right time zone, right? So I think that agreeing on some core hours that people are, working within a team, it doesn't have to be, and I apologize, I keep trying to adjust the light. Sun is shining on. Excuse me, sun is shining in on me. So I think finding those those core hours for teams and how they're going to, manage. My apologies. Is important. So you have the flexibility. I think that's one of the things we all discovered as we, again, kind of moved into everybody being remote for a period of time, is having to, getting that flexibility. We all have the ability to work all the time because we're all sitting, we all have our home offices, whether you're in the office or not. We've all, I believe, set up a home office arrangement anyways. So you have that. And just making sure that you've, as a team, you agree on certain parameters. And oh my goodness, you have the right reporting mechanisms to make sure that you have that communication, because that's really key, is the communication and giving people opportunities. I've used Teams and Slack, both kind of as our, I always called it like the stop by the desk. Let me see if I can, there we go. Maybe I can get it a different way. I'm sorry. I'm a ghost here. Anyway, so
Well, your answer's good, so keep going.
I'll keep going. So having the stop by the desk ability. So creating a Slack channel or Teams channel or whatever group environment you have for your team, so that they can just pop in and ask questions, and making sure that you're available and you communicate when you're available and when you're not. I think that's really important too.
There's some really great points that you made there, and around the timing of work in Australia. The government's actually legislating rules around people's work hours, but I think it is quite a challenge when there's so many teams that are part of global teams that I guess this calls an example of it, of course, given like I'm at midnight, and I think most of us are at very different times than that. All right, who else would like to share some of their thoughts on some key strategies? Yes, Anna.
Thank you very much for bringing that up, Rod. I mean, there was an attempt here in California to establish non-working hours after 6 p.m. in the afternoon. While here in the Silicon Valley, the number of the Fortune 50 companies, global companies that are sitting, is the biggest number in the world. And they have to communicate, really different times, outside the working hours. It was a disaster. It didn't really happen. So, allow me to enhance and build a little bit more on what Kim has just introduced. In a hybrid work environment, we need to think strategically. What are really the parameters that are changing and force us really to make things different? And one thing is the proximity, but also how people really interact, because it's even in the past, communication was a little bit broken, because imagine we were just making a town hall meeting, announcements were made, but what was the level of interaction that people were having with the speakers? Even then, I mean, things were not really right. But now that half of the people have the proximity to the speakers and the others probably do not because they connect through a video conference, that's even worse, because this creates a contrast between those that are based in the office and those that are not. Do we want really to have some equity over there, provide the opportunity to all of them to communicate? How do we do that? So we really think, we really need to have a different thinking perspective. So that's why we really need to find ways that provide the same or at least equal opportunities to all of the participants. I would like to tell you that during a change that I was doing for a large organization here, what I have done in order to overcome that is that instead of having town hall meetings, I had the leaders really communicate through podcasts. Why? Because first of all, the podcast could really be attended anytime by the participants. They can really commute to their work and listen to that. And those that were at home, they can listen at home. But I had established an interaction by having them provide their questions. So they were asking the leaders the things that they wanted to hear information about. And the leaders were recording things for them to be enlightened, to be informed on the questions that they were asking. And we did that, I mean, at the first time as a recording. And finally, we made the opportunity possible so that the podcast was broadcasted live and they could ask questions. But with that thing, we eliminated the factor of proximity so that those that they were really close and located here in Silicon Valley did not have an advantage or a privilege in comparison to those that were, let's say, based in Asia or somewhere else in the world. With that, I would like to say that we really need to understand what are the things that we need to achieve. And when you know the parameters that you want to fulfill, it is a little bit easier to see what is the kind of medium that you will adopt in order to achieve that.
Thanks, Anna. I really like the 2 points that you made there. And I actually think, for my personal experience, like I've worked in high-tech companies as well, and like in Australia time zone, and we've used a lot of offshoring of roles. You know, part of our teams it would be in China and India as well. And so one thing that COVID period taught me, where everybody was working remote, was how effective it actually was for those meetings where we all had the same. We were all remote. And then I did notice, as things were changing, exactly the point you made, that there was quite a difference when you're in the office versus the people on remote calls. And I'd really didn't have proper awareness of that, the issues that sort of brought about, until experiencing that myself. Never thought about how, where I'd have half my team in India and half my team in Australia, how, the impacts to the Indian team with that. So that was some really good points. And I like the idea of the podcast approach as well. Anyone else want to jump in before we move to the next question? All right. Or maybe Vaclav, can you just share any examples? So you've said your organization went through similar things to this. Any specific examples or strategies that were implemented in your organization at all?
Well, we were basically thrown into a lockdown within 24 hours, and we were facing the two options: either to shut down the operations completely, and at that time we were supporting some quite important customers, including customers from the medical industry. So that would be a bit unfortunate to hit them that way as well. And we managed to implement a set of measures, including strengthening the infrastructure, and it also required a sort of change of the way how the company was used to communicate and collaborate together, because I believe that you can actually do many things either online or remotely or physically in the office. It just requires a bit of adaptation of the communication and leadership techniques. So we managed to do that, and all the metrics basically were either same or better than before COVID. So our quality KPIs were fulfilled 100%. Our employee engagement scores soared during that time because the employees were happy that they could still have the job. We didn't have to make any pay cuts or staff reductions or anything like that. And they could actually, on one hand, feel safe because they were not forced to dwell in places with the high concentration of other people. So that was limiting the potential spread. And secondly, they could take care of their families, and that time schools were closed on and off, and they had to take care of their children, sometimes their parents and so on. So we allow them, the arrangement we put in place allowed them to actually attend their family matters and personal matters and blend them well together with their professional duties. So they all appreciated it, and as a result of that, after the main wave of the pandemic was over, the company started implementing a fully remote working policy, meaning now basically the employees can choose where they want to work from. It's not only limited to their home or home working. It means really work from anywhere. So as long as they, the main criteria is they fulfill their duties. It's up to them to have a stable internet connection or whatever they need to do to have in order to be able to do their work. But as long as they fulfill their KPIs and do what is expected from them, nobody is questioning whether they're doing it from the office or from their sofa or from a beach in Thailand, for instance.
That sounds like a pretty good place to work. It sounds like nirvana for I mean, not all organizations are.
You said that.
Yeah. Sounds pretty good. All right. Well, we might start to move on to the next one. So, yeah, I think, I mean, the example you just saw was pretty cool. So, ensuring this positive employee experience while maintaining productivity, is though, quite a concern for many organizations, and it does certainly require a lot of planning, execution. So I guess my question, and I'll come to Lotus to start us off, is just how can companies ensure a positive experience while maintaining productivity in this hybrid and remote work? So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that's such a great question, and definitely a challenge and balance that a lot of companies are faced with. On the productivity side, I think it's really important that you're setting very realistic and meaningful and measurable, goals and OKRs, and holding people accountable to that, right? Because then it doesn't matter what environment you're working on, you're still held to those same productivity measures. And then how do you balance that kind of with a positive employee experience? And I think Anna mentioned communication earlier, which I wholeheartedly agree with. I think that is so key in all of this because, we talk about productivity, but honestly, if you think about it, a lot of your employees that were not productive in an in-person environment, right, they still might have some performance issues when they're in a remote environment. So it's not necessarily the environment, but it's really remembering and changing our mindset that one size does not fit all. So you might have employees that actually did a lot better in a remote environment because for a million reasons, right? Whether it's something personal that they're dealing with, whether it's family stress of being in an office and having to commute, and all of that was lifted off. And so they're actually more productive. So I think the mindset shift to create a positive employee experience is really remembering that everyone is different and they're going to work different. And the nice thing about this new environment is that we can now let people work in the environment and the formats that are going to work best for them, where they're going to be their most productive. And if we can allow some of that choice, right? We're all humans and we all like that autonomy. And so I think that in itself is going to be a great foundation to really still be able to maintain a positive employee experience while maintaining your productivity at the same time.
Yeah. No, thanks, Lotus. Anyone else want to add in on that? Anna, yes.
I just want very much to enhance and add on what Lotus has just said by saying that under any kind of crisis, you can see how well organized the corporation or an organization in general is. Because when you are well organized and there is clarity and there are specific performance metrics, then everything can operate much more effectively, even under stressing situations. So what I suggest is that being well organized, operating much more effectively always helps. And we can expand on what that means, during our discussion.
Yeah, thanks, Anna. All right, well, we might move on to the next question, which actually you've given us a good intro, which was really how do we sort of in this sort of hybrid or remote work plus people physically at work, how do we, balance, how do we measure productivity and employee satisfaction? I can't say that word today in your organization. And so I'll come to Kim to start us off.
Yeah. So, I think that if you follow best practice, just as managing and leading teams, regular connects, so regular staff meetings, team meetings, one-on-ones, and making sure that the feedback and all of those things that are best practice in leadership and management and working with your teams still is in place. For my teams, I had at least weekly one-on-ones, sometimes more if we needed it. You talk through, we all are going to align on what metrics we're going to be, using, what goals that we have in place, what projects we're working on, and then just regularly talking through those. And I think that helps keep everybody going in the same direction. Again, teams these days are not, there are definitely certain companies that would have everybody in one office, but most of it you're going to have multiple offices, and we have this great technology to allow us to have these video conferences and video meetings and things like that. So I think that if you have those conversations with your team and your team members, and as a company, I think it's the same. It's not just one team; it's departmentally and organizationally. And just staying on track, understanding where we're going, what we're doing, where we're tracking, and helping people still understand their place in the workplace, meaning what their role, how it impacts the long-term or the goals of the company. And I think that does both. It helps with the productivity and employee satisfaction because I'm sitting here in my home office, a very sunny home office. With and I know what I'm supposed to be doing, and I'm tracking to it. And if I have questions, you should be able to speak to your manager. If you're struggling with something, you should have that time and have that space. So I think that those are the things for me that help measure those things and keep employees engaged and the satisfaction up.
Thanks, Kim. Anyone else want to share on this one? Yeah, go Anna.
I like very much that, Kim, you bring up the psychological safety that needs to exist within an organizational environment, which is so much important for people to feel that they can do things. And this is to the benefit not only to the employee, but also to the organization, because this is how innovation happens, right? At the same time, job clarity is so much important. People really need to know what is expected from them, and also how the job roles are interacting the one with the other, which means the handoff points, how the processes happen in relation to the roles. I've seen a lot of times people really being confused on what is their level of contribution in comparison to the other roles. And although they might feel very very safe, they don't know exactly what is required from them to do. And people really need to have a framework, or at least a context for them to work.
There's some good points there, Anna. All right, so I guess we're using technology here. Technology clearly plays a vital role in facilitating this hybrid remote work, and the right tools. We've heard about Slack. We've heard about podcasts. There's Teams. Yeah, so the right tools significantly enhance the communication, collaboration, and overall sort of efficiency of how we operate. So I guess my next question, and I'll come to Vaclav first on this one, is what roles does technology really play in optimizing this hybrid remote work model? And what sort of tools have you found useful for your organization?
Oh, well, first of all, the internet connection proved to be crucial, especially in the first hours and days. And then we realized that, we had to really strengthen our infrastructure when we first converted into fully remote working. That's number one. And internet connection is nowadays becoming an ubiquitous, the water supply or electricity supply, or so that's a prerequisite, and I think that shouldn't be an issue in most of the civilized world nowadays, if there's any company that wants to follow this example. And then there was actually not too much of sophisticated technology we deployed on top of that, because all these tools like VPNs and WebExes and Zooms and these online conferencing tools. Probably we used or deployed some of this like online collaboration tools, which allow you to sort of co-create with a group of people online. But apart from that, I think there was nothing really groundbreaking in terms of technology. The technology was there. It's just needed to strengthen the infrastructure and be able to use it. But maybe coming back to what Kim and Lotus said, I think it was more in the way we used or we started to use the technology differently than we were using it before. Instead of having a few calls every month, probably we had to do all the communication online. So we had to come up with different structures, different ways of connecting people. If there were people that didn't see each other before and suddenly had to collaborate on a new project, how do you actually do the team building with the under the lockdown? How do you connect them together, and how you make them familiar with each other? So we had to come up with sometimes some clever ways of using the technology, like and that's really extreme example, but just as an example, one time we did exercise, like physical exercise, with the employees. So there was one who was like he was keen on bodybuilding and exercising and all this kind of stuff. So he led the session, and everyone was supposed to, stand up in front of the camera, had the gym outfit, of course, and then perform all the exercises, and that was sort of a team exercise. And we did like a team lunch, team lunches or team dinners in similar way. Everyone cooked something at home or ordered the food delivery, and then we were eating in front of the camera, sort of simulating the real stuff. But I think there are other ways to do this, and maybe there's still space for consultants and training providers to come up with actually new ideas how to do team building and how to do these collaboration exercises using the online technology. And the other part, of course, is to enable the employees to use the technology. We were an IT company, so it comes as a prerequisite that you're able to use the IT technology and whatever comes with it. But I can imagine there are many companies where it's not so obvious. So maybe, and you know, you might have employees with different demographics, and some of them might be more digitally savvy than the others, and then you have to make sure that you actually look after all of the groups and make sure that they have the same sort of, they get to the same level of savviness with the technology, and there's no hindrance for them in terms of using the technology.
Yeah, you brought up some really interesting points, like which had me reflecting, like the social activities that certainly that we did during COVID, where we do these social things, like you mentioned, of things outside or dinners or different things like that. And then once we've come to this more hybrid place, I think, you know, reflecting on it, I think now in this hybrid place, we've probably reverted back to people in the office are still, you know, going out and having drinks. We probably aren't doing those social things, but yet still half our team, you know, globally are all remote. So it's actually probably an interesting thing how we actually balance like that. That was a really, like me reflecting on it, that was a really good time when we were all doing that, where we could all do some social things together remotely in this remote way. But we probably have now started to have, there's them and who's in the office, and then there's those who aren't, and there's probably not that social interaction right across the team. I don't know, has anyone else sort of experienced that as well, or can have ideas on that? Yeah, Lotus.
I really like what Vaclav said about, it's not just about the technology itself, it's about how you're utilizing the technology, because that's where I see a lot of companies kind of fail at this effort in implementing technology. Like, one, either we are chasing kind of the shiny new toys, but our employees aren't even ready for that, or we implement something without the right process, without the right communication, and people don't know how to use it, or they're not adapting well to it, right? Because we didn't even take a pulse of where they are. So we have to, I think the important thing about technology is we have to meet people where they are. And whether, you know, your company may or may not be concerned about like the social aspects, right? Like, get a pulse on that. So if you find out that people are concerned about like, how am I going to have that social aspect that's so important to my experience here when we're in this remote or hybrid environment now, then you can start evaluating tools that are appropriate to be able to address that. So, you know, as an example, I was at a company where that was a concern, because we were hybrid in that some people were fully remote, some people were fully on site, and some people were themselves a hybrid doing both. And, you know, there was a concern around training programs and how we were going to do that. And so we had one where I actually led a leadership program. I was virtual. I had one of my team members moderate in person. And so we had a mix of people who were in person taking this one class that I was leading, and then we had a virtual audience combined. And we knew that there was going to be concern that, like, between breaks, right, everyone in the office, they're getting together, they're chit-chatting, and you can't hear what they're saying if you're virtual. So people felt like they were going to miss out on that social aspect during a session like that. And so we created opportunities for people to do that, the people who were virtual, to do that with each other. the people in the office obviously were doing that together. But then we came back together, and my moderator on site and I would summarize, and we would have a conversation as a whole group to talk about what came up. And this was nothing to do with the leadership program, right? This was a social aspect. What are people talking about? What are people doing on their weekends? What is on everyone's minds? And we made time for that. So if you're really, really intentional about how you're utilizing technology, not just what technology you're using, but how you're utilizing it, I think you can really accomplish some of that. So I think intentionality is so big when it comes to tech.
Yeah, I think that's some great initiatives you did there, Lotus. I think that, and something Anna said before around psychological safety, like the whole thing of how do I feel I belong. I think, the way that you structured that sounds like a pretty cool way to do it. Anyone else want to add?
We were talking about adoption of technology and how people use it, and Lotus, mentioned meeting people where they're at, and I think that's incredibly important. When we're working towards this and making changes, especially if you're changing technology or asking for adoption in a different tool, it's really about change management. I have found, I have switched out software I used. I switched our peer recognition system from one over to Motivosity, and it was a lot of communication. We did some training. We did a variety of different trainings, whether it was recorded, which I think is really something that's is kind of cool that has come out of it, is all of this is that we can record sessions. So we can record this as we're doing now. We can publish it so people can go back and, so if it's a meeting, it can be recorded and they can go back and watch it if they weren't able to attend. But I think that it's really just in change management, making sure that's effective, the communication, opting in, allowing or providing training so that people can come in. Maybe some people are early adopters and jump right in, and others maybe need a little more time to kind of get used to the idea of something new. So I think it's really about change management.
Yep. Yeah, Anna.
I would like to thank Kim for bringing that up. I mean, managing the change is so much important, and that's why the first step that we need to take is assess the impact that the change has in the organization. So when you have clarity, what is the from situation and what is the to situation, I mean, you go from something else to something else, and you have a clarity of what is changing. You really need to assess these changes, how they're going to affect how the work is being done, the content of the job roles, how the roles are interacting together, how it affects the person, the behaviors of the person, or the education that they need to have in order to fulfill their role, and so many other things within the organization. When you make this kind of exercise and have the clarity on how the change is impacting the organization, then you are in the position to develop the right strategies in order to overcome this. And the right strategies will be appealing exactly on overcoming or minimizing the impact that you have already assessed. So I always urge people to be very intentional, as it has been said, and strategic in the way that they approach things, so that what they do is successful. Otherwise, there is a lot of effort that does not have the equal level of results.
Yeah, thanks, Anna. All right, just want to dive in a bit more on what Lotus was saying as well. Like fostering this sense of community and collaboration is really, it's really key to cohesion and morale. But yeah, like absolutely can be challenging when team members aren't all physically together. So I'll come back to you, Anna. Just what's your ideas on just how can managers and leaders foster this sense of community and collaboration amongst where we've got this, remote and hybrid teams?
I believe that I would insist a lot on having the clarity required that is so much important because we need the organization to have clarity on what is required from the employees, but at the same time provide them the performance metrics so that they can be measured upon open and clear metrics. Especially in a hybrid work environment that people might be far from the office, they don't necessarily get the cues that come out when you have a proximity. So that kind of clarity on the performance metrics and on the requirements from each job holder fills this gap. Because people at the office can really have a chit chat, can really clarify things sometimes, or they get the cues that are coming out. But those people that are not located at the office, they really need to have this clarity. And it is a matter of equity, providing this base for every employee, wherever they are located.
Yeah, thanks, Anna. Anyone else want to add on to that one? Yeah, go, Lotus.
I think I'm going to go with maybe an unpopular answer here, but I really feel like we overcomplicate this part of it sometimes. I've led teams, like I said, fully in person, hybrid, and then fully remote. And I didn't change how I lead them, right? When it comes to leadership, it's about intentionality. Like, forget all of those. I'm sorry, but forget all of those like fancy titles we give to leadership, like servant leadership, authoritative leadership. Like, just be intentional as a leader. And if you care enough, right? Like, if you're intentional about what you're doing, you can adapt to these different environments. It's not changing who you are as a leader, right? And so I think we overcomplicate it, we overthink it. When we're changing these environments, as Kim said, it's about change management, it's about leadership. All of that doesn't change. It just, the format changes. And also, I think we sometimes try to be these brilliant innovators. Like, what do we do now that we're like in a remote environment coming from an in-person environment? But we also have to remember some of this has been done already, right? Like, there's so many places to learn from already. Way before COVID, we had amazing online communities that have been built and a sense of belonging online that didn't used to exist actually in person, because now you're bringing global communities together, people who are dispersed, and you're bringing them into this community where they actually feel like they belong. One example is when I was early in my career, I joined Twitter, and there was this incredible HR community that was already built on Twitter. They were doing Twitter chats on a weekly, sometimes bi-weekly basis. And I joined in there, and I was completely embraced by this community at a time where I felt lost in my HR career, because where I was at the time didn't have all the support systems I needed to grow my career. And it was just amazing to find this community, and it was all online. Till this day, I haven't met a lot of those people, yet there's been opportunities from there. There have been paid opportunities because of that online community. There's been personal opportunities, constant advice when I needed help with something I was working on at work, shared resources, new introductions. Like, so much has come out of that. I have like an amazing person from that community who's doing the forward for my book. Like, there's like everyone that's contributing to my book is from that community from way back when. And this is all online. So I really think we can learn from places like that instead of reinventing the wheel, for lack of a better word. But I really think that we overcomplicate this part sometimes, and we can take a step back and really learn from other experiences that existed before COVID.
No, very, very true. And I like your point around being intentional. And one of the things that I noticed for myself personally is that probably during the COVID period, everyone's remote. I was probably just more relying on just, we were having overall team meetings, and maybe my one-on-ones weren't as much. What I noticed when I was then, transitioning to doing more in person as well as remote, is that I was having lots of, social one-on-ones with people in my team. And I noticed, like, it took me a bit to catch myself that I wasn't making myself available for these little virtual one-on-ones with the remote team to the same extent. So I really had to be intentional about, making sure I just, outside of our normal work meetings that we have, that I just give people a call. And just, again, very simple thing to do, but given I wasn't physically with them, that become, quite a good simple tool just to be more engaged, and giving more equity to just having those conversations. Yep. All right. So I guess the next thing I was just thinking, so there's obviously lots of challenges, hybrid that comes up with here. And I guess my next question is, what are some of the biggest challenges that you've encountered with hybrid and remote work, and how have we gone about addressing them? So anyone can start with this one. So if you'd like to talk about some challenges, I think Kim
I'd be
put a
happy to
hand up.
start.
Yes,
Yeah.
thanks.
So I think that one of the challenges, honestly, was more about the hybrid. I think we quickly adjusted to fully remote. There's all kinds of different tools we threw out there, and again, I really like Slack or Teams where you can have an ongoing conversation. But the hybrid is, and I think Lotus touched on it, maybe Anna did too, is you've got people who are right in front of you, people who are at least working together in person, and then you have people who are remote. Now, if you go through the exercise of having set days that people are in the office, there's that, and that can help. But if you've got a blend, and one area I find is like meetings, when you're having, call it a staff meeting or some other type of meeting, you've got a group of people who are online watching, and a group of people in person. And one of the things that I implemented is if we're hybrid and we're not all in the same room, everyone should log into the call the same way, so that one, it's easier to communicate, because those oftentimes those conference room cameras I don't find them as effective unless you can get a facial view. So trying to make sure that you have remember that you have remote team members, and that you're engaging with them as well, and giving them the same opportunity to speak up, and kind of make sure that you have some rules around that. And then still, utilizing the tools, peer recognition tools, I think are really important too. That connects people across functions, so it's not just your HR team or your people team. People from all over the world, all over the company can engage with one another, and social platforms like that. And it's not forced. I think we all kind of learned that forced happy hour sometimes is a little bit awkward, when it's a remote happy hour. So this is a different tool that encourages and engages employees both in person and remote.
Thanks, Kim. Anyone else want to chime in? Anna.
I believe that we need to guide the leaders in order to have much more of the workload that needs interaction during the days that are at the office, in comparison to work that can be done only by ourselves, and that can be done at home. Organizing meetings, for example, much more during the days at the office in comparison to the others, or creating opportunities for interaction. That is something that the HR can help with, but at the same time really help the leaders create check-in points during these days. I believe that a hybrid work environment, more and more is more days at the office and less at home. It could be, let's say, 1 day a week or something like that. So we need to be very cautious on what we leave outside of the workload of these days in comparison to the others. We don't want the people to commute, let's say, 2 hours a day for them to sit in front of a screen and have a video conference, right? So we want them really to commute and have a social interaction with the people at the office, right? And HR can really help leaders think of having more interaction in the office.
Yeah, thanks, Anna. And that sort of, I guess we've got 9 minutes left. Golly, it's gone very quick. We can talk about this topic for a very long time. but I think you just brought up a good point, and that's around HR's role. And I think we've probably got, normally we've got quite a heavy number of people from a HR background. So, yeah, I'm just wondering then, from, I guess the next question really is about what are some of the best practice sort of ideas coming at it from a HR practitioner's point of view, to help leaders, to help employees in this, to feel connected and included in this sort of hybrid and remote work environment. So who'd like to add on to this idea? What can HR practitioners specifically do? Anyone? Vaclav?
I would like to say a word about this because it sort of raises my blood pressure every now and then. I think the best practice in this sense is inclusion, right? We have seen a lot of DEI activities, proclamations, reports, and activity and so on. And I think during the COVID time, I saw a lot of the opposite, and the companies that were actually trumpeting DEI were happy to exclude many groups of employees when they found the smallest reason that they could do it. And I think that shows who is actually serious about diversity and inclusion, and who is doing it just as a lip service or for marketing purposes, right? So inclusion is important, because if you have a different groups, different demographics in the company, and different modes of ways of working, hybrid and remote, and some people must be physically present, let's say, that there is a vast number of operations where you actually have to do it physically. So how do you actually ensure that everybody is treated the same way, and that the one group does not see the other group as privileged, or the vice versa, right? And then now it feels especially painful when I see these companies that sort of used to be at the forefront of driving the employee experience and all that, and now they're openly talking about denying promotions for people that are working remotely or hybrid, or implementing pay cuts, or denying their salary increases and this kind of stuff. I think it's completely contradictory to what they should be doing, and it's actually revealing the true nature of these companies.
No, you bring up a good point. And to even to a further extreme, I've seen some companies where people are being more remote. They're the ones that are being targeted for layoffs as well, which is which is more of an unsaid thing.
And I'm a big proponent of hybrid working and remote working and all this, and I think it has many benefits, and especially the one that is regularly omitted is the positive impact for the environment. Like, everyone wants to be green, but if you drive an EV and your electricity comes from natural gas or coal combustion, how green it is. It's better not to use the car at all. Stay at home, work from home, be green. But that's completely omitted. Number two is what I want to say. Sorry, I got too passionate about it now.
That's all right.
This aspect is I mean, not many people talk about it right now, and then they're happy to go back to the old fashioned model of working in the office, because they feel safe. And I think the other issue is trust, right? What we have to think about, and maybe probably build it differently in the remote environment than it is in the face-to-face, where there's a lot of non-verbal interaction, whilst in the remote setup there's a lot of verbal, and then the communication facilitated by technology has all sort of like downsides. And I have to say that I really believe that majority of the things are better to be done in the office and better to be done face-to-face. But if the company decides any company decides to do that, they have to think about the other implications as well, and especially how they're actually limiting their access to the talent pool by excluding all these people that they could actually hire remotely and that could work for them remotely. So then you have to put this, side by side and say, so, okay, maybe some things are better this way and some things are better to be done that way. But if I want to harvest the benefit from both, what is it I have to put in place?
Yeah, that's a very good point you bring around skill availability. All right, I'm going to have to close that question off because I think we've got 3 minutes left. So maybe we'll just go around our virtual room and just if everyone wants to just share a key takeaway that you've got from this from this panel today, and that. So let's just go around the room and we'll go opposite ways. So I'll start with Lotus.
I think be intentional, build trust and personalize and customize your approach, because we just don't live in a one-size-fits-all world anymore. And I think we need to start coming to terms with that in order to impact culture positively. So get to know your people and customize that experience for them now that you're in a, hybrid work environment.
Yeah, thanks. I'm going to remember being intentional from you. And Kim.
Well, I certainly second the being intentional. I think that there's things that we implemented when we were fully in person, and keeping in mind that the key piece is that it is being a leader, is that feedback and the conversation and making sure that you're connecting with your team and meeting them where they're at, for sure. And I think as companies doing the same thing, you can do that as a broader scope, but through your engagement surveys or whatever else, identify areas that might need a little more boost.
Thanks, Kim. Anna.
I believe that any work environment, but a hybrid environment even more, needs clarity of expectations and also performance management, that it is transparent with metrics that everyone can understand. In this way, we do not create any kind of inequality, either in promotions or treatment or whatsoever.
Good points, Anna. And Vaclav, if you want to close us off this question.
I have to say we have a proverb in my native language, and that says everything bad is good for something else. I don't know if there's a parallel in English, but I think COVID brought a lot of bad things to us, but it also brought some benefits. And many people say that COVID was the biggest accelerator of digitalization in the business overall. And I think, and I have said maybe some harsh words about some companies, going backwards, but I believe there are just isolated examples, and there are many companies that actually realize the benefits of the virtual working and hybrid working and all the new models of working that have emerged in the past 3 to 4 years. And I believe that this will stay with us, and I also believe that those who actually realize and find a way how they can mitigate the cons and harvest the benefits will be the ones that will thrive in the future.
Yeah, no, absolutely. All right, so that brings us to a close. So thank you, panelists, for sharing your insights and experiences. And I think that we've really saw balancing flexibility structure of hybrid remote is an ongoing challenge, but it's just really clear that it's a challenge that's got a lot of value for organizations and individuals. So it's a challenge that we really need to continue to get better at. So thank you to the audience who joined us today. Hope you found the session informative and helpful. So everybody have a great day, and I'll see you at a future panel. So thank you. So, bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.